Welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about experience versus mileage. And that's so in the sense of living aboard at a marina, living aboard without a lot of moving, you're very stuck on one end of that equation. Your experiences don't involve a lot of mileage. And that may not necessarily be completely true. You may live aboard a reasonably sized boat and have a smaller launch or small boat that you do take out and go places with. And there's nothing wrong with that. One of my favorite periods of living aboard, I did a lot of dinghy sailing. Not racing dinghies, not the little flat bottom lasers or something, but dinghies in the sense of small boats with oars and sails. And they can be quite fun and quite adventurous. And there are movements right now, huge organizations, groups, huge numbers of people who will go out and go dinghy cruising or dinghy camping. And you'll take a 14 or a 16-foot boat with a sail and oars, probably an outboard. Very few people like to use oars exclusively. And you'll go out and you'll sail in a group to an island, around a bay, up a river system, through the ICW, and you'll find a little anchorage. Sometimes, quite often, you won't sleep at anchor. You'll actually pull the little ships, these little dinghies, to shore, and you will camp out. You've got a tent that fits over the boom of your mast, or some other concoction, a pop top. This is exactly what you're doing on a Catalina 22 with the pop top. It's a 22-foot boat. It's basically dinghy sailing. Or a South Coast 23, Kittiwake 24, little Alberg design, something like that. It's the same concept. Typhoon 18, dinghy sailing. And the idea there is that you're getting the experience. You're doing the sailing. You're moving fast at 3 miles an hour. You feel like you're moving fast. You're working the boat. You're having the fun. You're doing the things. You're getting the experience of doing the adventure. But the mileage that you track, if you wanted to look at it and measure it in, did you go 1,000 miles? Well, no, you didn't. You're not driving an RV across the continent either. So the miles traveled does not equal the experience. In a marina, you may be stuck on a boat that doesn't move very far or doesn't move at all, and you still have the experiences of living aboard, being on the marina. And that may be incredibly valuable to you, and you may actually go from marina to marina. You may have boat friends, or you may be hopping around looking for other boats, or you may just go to different yacht clubs, bars, or cafeterias or whatever to visit. Canteens, not cafeterias. And I'm not going to get into the yacht club thing right now, but just it's an example. And then the other side of the coin, there are people who do really feel like the experience requires a lot of mileage. And there's a point to that. There's nowhere that you can go from where we are at right now, in the middle of the northern neck of Virginia. There's not a lot of places you can go close by and do any experience other than sailing around, dinking around, motoring around, and coming back to the slip. There's nowhere to go that is very close. And when I say close, I mean 15 miles by boat. You've got two places. On the weekend, if it's open in season, you've got one other marina that has a rooftop bar that is occasionally open. And you've got a crab shack up at Coles Point. That's it. There isn't anything else that's close by. So your experiences are going to be of a certain type. But you don't have to travel very far. If you're cruising, you can make 5 miles a day, you can make 2 miles a day, you can make 20 miles a day, and you're at a different anchorage, and that's fine. The only thing that really matters there is if you want to go to shore, want to go to a bar, want to go to a grocery store, you need to have a certain type of area that has those things. But if you're just anchoring out and traveling, then the experience means more than the distance traveled. And that's really kind of the key to a lot of things in life, but especially living aboard. The distance that you travel is not the important aspect. There are areas where you need to go a certain distance to get away from, a Navy base or a restricted zone or shipwrecks or polluted water or whatever. And that's stuff you do. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the experience of living on the boat, cruising on the boat, being on the boat. And whether or not the ability to be mobile, I think is very important. But whether or not the distance traveled is actually the key to the experience. And I don't think beyond the ability to move at all, if that's part of the goal, beyond that, I don't think it is. There's a couple places I can anchor within 3 miles and spend the night, and that's good. It's good cruising experience. It's great to just do, and there's nothing wrong with it. And the experience is just as valuable as if I went across the bay 30 miles and anchored in some other little cove. That doesn't matter. Don't know if that makes sense. Don't know if I'm really getting a point across. Because the point, I feel, is actively important. The ability to enjoy the experience, even if it's just across the river to an anchorage. I think that's a big deal. And I think that people, when they get into boats, when they get into boat life, they think of things like sailing around the world. They think of things in terms of passages to the Bahamas, passages to the Mediterranean. And you don't have to do that to have the experience. You get the best experiences with just moving 5 miles up the bay. It doesn't look like much on a car, and that's actually kind of a good thing, because in terms of land-based support, like if you own a car, if you need to park, if you need a bus, if you need a taxi or an Uber, not having to go 1,000 miles is actually kind of cool. So, the experience of doing it in small bites is just as valuable, just as intense, just as fun, just as meaningful as doing large bites. In fact, it's probably a lot more fun, because that 10th day at sea kind of sucks. I'll be honest. It's grand to be on the adventure, but it's really nice to dink around and go on little coastal anchorages and know that you have 3 or 4 spots that you can pick to spend the night when you leave in the morning. It's really cool. So don't count the experience in the miles. Count the experience in what you do, what you see, what your relaxation is, what your happiness is, setting the anchor, hanging out in the cockpit and watching the sunset. Take it slow, take it easy. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to move huge amounts of distance. Maybe you're following the weather. That's fine. Just go a little bit every day. The weather doesn't move that fast. Winter doesn't come in one day. It takes weeks. You have 3 months to get to Florida. October, November, December. From Chesapeake Bay. That is a lot of time to take your time and have the experiences in little mileage bites. It's the experience, not the distance traveled. That's really it. That's the whole message here. If you can spend the night on your boat, you won. Just that's it. That's what you wanted. That's what you want to be here for. Comfortably spend the night on the boat. Just keep doing it. You don't have to go far. If you're cruising, you don't have to go far. You just have to go. If you're at the marina, you don't have to go at all. You just have to have the experiences and maintain the experiences. Don't fall into a rut or a need situation. It's about the experience, not the miles traveled. It's a really big deal. All right? Now have a great morning and stay sideways.